So good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome. This is Stewardship Commons webinar, Jobs, AI, and the Pressure to Succeed. My name is Lynn, and I'm part of the Stewardship Commons team. So welcome. I'm your moderator for today, and joining me are two very important guests and speakers. And we have quite a bit to go through today. So without further ado, I'll pass the time to Adrian and Josh to introduce themselves. So Adrian, over to you.
Hi everyone, thank you for the invite. I'm Adrian. I am my day job is really in marketing, so I'm a fractional head of marketing. At the same time, I also am into podcasting, and also recently written a book on self-employment called No More Bosses.
Thank you, Adrian. So Josh, over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much to Stewardship Asia for having me. I basically am the managing director for the Asia Pacific office of the Future of Privacy Forum. The Future of Privacy Forum, or FPF, is a global nonprofit organization that's focused on principled and pragmatic practices in terms of data protection and emerging technology to support the greater use of technology. Prior to this, I worked in the government regarding AI regulation as well as content safety for about 5 years. And prior to that, I practiced as a lawyer. On the side of things, I do street dance as hobby. And the reason why I mention it now is because I'll be making brief mention about it later. So thank you again for having me and looking forward to a good conversation.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, so we'll begin now. And the first question is, how can young people prepare for jobs that don't yet really exist in a rapidly changing economy? Adrian, you want to start off first?
Thanks. You didn't start easy, you go straight for the punch. I've been hearing this and seeing this quite a fair bit. And firstly, my heart goes out to all the young people nowadays. You know, in the past, we were told that, PSLE, your grades do well, everything is guaranteed. Then it just doesn't happen anymore. Even graduate from com science seems to be struggling nowadays. I personally feel if I have to put myself in their shoe, firstly, the exposure to many different things is important. And by virtue of exposure, I feel it is really to experiment, to take on things that you believe may interest you and to see where that might lead you. I'll give you an example. Like, I was interested in doing podcasting, and I started around 2016 or something. I stopped a while, I resumed again. It was just a pet project. It's like gardening. You don't get money for it. It's just something that I'm interested in. But because of that, it led to something else, and I was actually invited to co-host a work-related podcast on Channel News Asia. And from there, it grew to some other commission work. And right now, I actually have 2 commission work, which surrounds me being a podcast host. So something like that started off based on your pure interest can evolve into something more meaningful or even or even productive. So I feel if you can lean into what really interests you, just spend some time to find out more. I mean, nowadays we are all talking about AI and stuff, right? Just spend 5, 10, 15 minutes every week. Just play around with it. I feel those are things that people should try to spend a bit more time on to see where that might lead them to.
Thanks, Josh. And your point of view?
Sure. And I just wanted to say first, congratulations, Adrian, for those 2 gigs. They sound wonderful. And I would echo Adrian's point that I feel and empathize for the younger folks in the room, because they are facing a much more troubled, a much more uncertain world. Every generation has its uncertainties. During when I was growing up, I still am, but before I stepped into adulthood, the world also felt very uncertain for me, and that certainly hasn't dissipated today. If anything, it's grown more. But just to turn to the question, I think this question is really one that's about how to deal with unknown unknowns, right? How do you actually prepare for jobs that don't exist? I think the point is that it's not possible to prepare yourself now deliberately for jobs that do not yet exist. It's a bit like exam spotting. You could be one of those lucky rare few that happens to guess correctly, but it can't be a viable strategy for anyone that's serious about their future. But what you can prepare for is the fact that the fundamental skill sets for humans in the next 5 to 10 years, they are unlikely to significantly shift. So we've all heard about how as AI begins to replace the functionalities of jobs in the lowest rung of the job ladder, we need to shift to areas that humans can still retain some edge in. And if you look at the articles out there, there is an argument that there are 4 areas where humans cannot be replaced by AI systems. That's in relationships, human relationships. So jobs that focus on that aspect. It could be podcasting, it could be social work, it could be teaching, right? That's going to remain important. Sports and competition. The example that I give is around chess. Actually, the technology to beat humans in chess comprehensively has existed since about 2 or 3 decades ago. Human chess grandmasters are already not as good as AI systems since the 1990s. But this doesn't mean that chess went away. What evolved instead was centaur chess, competitions where you have humans plus AI systems pitted against other humans with AI systems. This spirit for competition will remain there. And so the question is, how do you work with AI systems to leverage them in order to be better than your fellow competitors? The third is human interest stories based on real life. So how do you communicate and connect with people through relationships, through human stories? Those who are looking at the communications sector, looking at journalists, for example, this is particularly important. And I think the final area is philosophy, ethics, and religion. So if you're in the space of looking at legal standards, ethical standards, looking at philosophy, looking at social sciences, what is right for society, that will not go away, because no matter how AI systems develop, they will still be held to the standards, the ethical and legal and philosophical standards that humans have already set for millennia. Fundamentally, as I said, there are skill sets in the next 5 to 10 years that won't shift, and these are soft skills and good attitude, right? Looking at good interpersonal skills, leadership, teamwork, working across cultures, stress management, resilience, communication, and so on. And you also have the need to have a good attitude or mindset. The best time to shape mindsets is when you are younger, when the brain's neural pathways are not yet ossified and not just entirely focused on sustaining a living. So I'll end this part here by just referring to Prime Minister Wong's National Day rally yesterday. If you are watching this from a recording, Prime Minister's point regarding during the NDR to youth was that for youth, it is important to develop the ability to think, solve problems, and keep learning through life. And in an age of AI, what really matters is the human qualities that machines cannot replicate: character, values, empathy, and the sense of purpose. So that really encapsulates, I think, the point of how youths should approach this question as they grow up and build their careers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. So we go quickly to the next question. With AI and increasingly accessible global talent, how can I stand out and find work that actually feels meaningful? I think some of it might be covered earlier, but let's go back through. I think let's start with you, Adrian, again. What do you think?
The more questions you ask, the more I realize it's so hard to be a young person nowadays. On the standout part, I believe the activity of putting yourself out there is very important to build in open, build in public. So if you're trying to break into, say, a marketing field, like okay, I'll give you an example. I saw this lady who left SPH as a journalist, and she mentioned in a subsequent LinkedIn post that she's struggling to find anything. She's down to don't know how much in terms of her savings. So I reposted her post, and I was trying to check out her portfolio to see, the kind of writing that she has done, so that if something comes up, I know what to recommend. She's done no writing at all. Basically, journalism to her is just a job. She hasn't done any other writing. That goes back to my point. How do you stand out? You really have to start creating something in the public. This is not unique to just being a journalist. Anything that fascinates you, you can write about it. You can do a podcast about it. You can do a YouTube video about it. You can do a TikTok dance about it, even if you want to. There are really no limits to the kind of things that you can generate in terms of content. And unfortunately, because the world is so much noisier right nowadays, and also TikTok has trained us to have very, very short attention span, you do have to lean into the kind of content that people are more geared towards. When I started, blogging was just a thing. So long form content is actually okay. But nowadays, long form content will just put people to sleep because they much rather doom scroll their whole entire evening on TikTok. So unfortunately, you have to go with the tide. And that is how you can then try to stand out. But of course, it very much depends on the kind of function, kind of expertise that you want to get into. Most of the people that I'm familiar with, they will still be very much on LinkedIn, producing content there and to try to put themselves out as the expert or the go-to expert within their field that they aspire to get into. In terms of work that is meaningful, I guess to each their own. What I find meaningful, you may find not meaningful. It really depends on what you thing you may know that really fascinate and interest you, which I know is very hard. I mean, right now I'm 46 years old. If you ask me what is my meaning of life, I still cannot give you an answer. So let alone someone in their 20s. But one thing I feel that we all would know better is what we dislike. So just try to at least cancel out all those stuff that you don't like. And hopefully by deleting all those things that you do not like, you may at least get directionally correct in where you should head towards. And then just go along that path. And hopefully that will help you to find something that you like and something that you may find meaningful.
Thanks for that, Adrian. I think your answer is very real, like to lean into your passion, lean into your own strength and see where you can fly. So over to you, Josh. What do you think? How can I stand out to find work that actually feels meaningful? How can I keep myself, stand out in the workplace, to make meaningful work out of it? Thanks.
So, I think, frankly, the answer that Adrian gave was a fantastic one. So it's going to be hard to beat that. But let's break this question down, right? We're looking at technology such as AI that's potentially creating upwards pressure on the lower rungs of the job market. And then you have accessible global talents that's creating pressure across the entire length of the job ladder. So in that context, you want to excel and you want to excel in a way that feels meaningful. I think I echo Adrian's comments that it is going to be challenging. But look, with every challenge comes an opportunity, and that's the mindset part that comes in. So let's start with mindsets. And then let's focus on the idea of what meaning means, right? From my experience, try to choose a career or a job or a task where when you finish your work for the day, it at least makes you feel like you are just that one step closer to being the person you want to be compared to yesterday. So it's a very simple metric. When you finish your work for the day, do you feel that, okay, I'm one step closer to the person that I want to be as compared to the day before? So to do that, you need to be able to find your own narrative in life. And real narrative creation requires deep thought and asking why. Always asking why, breaking down the different levels until you reach your core purpose. Then that becomes a constant North Star, which helps create a much clearer path in life. Let me give you an example from my personal experience. When I first started out in the job field, I trained as a lawyer. So everyone around me was thinking that they would go to a law firm, they would promote from an associate to a senior associate, then go on to a partner, and then they're set for life. Everyone had this linear narrative for it. I somehow bought into it as well in law school. When I graduated, within a few short months, I started to realize, hey, something is wrong. This doesn't seem to be the kind of role or the person that I want to be. But then I was stuck because there were so many possibilities out there of what I felt I could do, to the point where I had a paralysis of choice. I knew I had to change, but I didn't know to change to what. Do I change to a different firm? Do I change to a different industry? If I go to a different industry, what do I do? Or which industry should I choose? Which one is the one for me? And that required a long period, years in fact, of deep thinking to know where I wanted to head to. But ultimately, when I was able to clarify that, then for the next leap, the next bound, things became much clearer for me. One of the concepts that helped me, maybe you can take a look at it, is the concept of ikigai, right? Which is a mental model previously popularized in the late 2010s, I might say, where you're looking at what are you good at? What does the world need that you can contribute to? What can you be paid for? What do you like to do? When you combine all these in a Venn diagram, that sweet spot in the middle may just be the thing that you can go and explore. The last thing, maybe I'll just close off for this question, is when you're looking at success, you want to be successful, supposed to be known not by your value, for example, superficial metrics like your job title, the amount of money you bring home, the car you're able to buy, or the lifestyle that you're able to have, but choose to be known by your values. In other words, don't aim to value achievements, but aim to be measured by the achievement of your values. For me, the three values are very clear: respect, humility, and discipline. And these came out from my past as a street dancer, right? And that keeps me grounded. It keeps me real. So look out for the danger of being driven solely by material success, which is often the source of internal dissonance and unhappiness.
Thanks. I'm just going to the chat now at the moment. We do have a couple of questions. I might just divert a little bit. So first question here is, what are your recommendations on AI knowledge and upskilling if we are not in the technology space? Josh, you have a quick answer for that one? We'll do it quite quickly.
Yes, I think absolutely. Yeah, so I can go first. In terms of AI knowledge and upskilling, if you're not in the technology space, I think it is worthwhile having a basic literacy of what are the AI applications out there that you can use, and have a good understanding of what are the use cases it can be used for, right? Then also understand what are some general pieces of information and knowledge about how to use this technology in a responsible way, right? How do you use it in a way that does not produce or promulgate false information, false narratives, to beware of hallucinations, to not put your own sensitive personal information or confidential information on these AI systems? I think these are things that you should know how to do. The final thing is, for example, we're talking about generative AI. That's probably the elephant in the room when we're talking about AI systems. Don't just rely on what generative AI produces, right? And just use it,
Thanks.
the whole thing of whatever is generated, and use it for what you need. Have an internal process where you critique it, see how you want to improve it. And that's how you continue to engage your mind. And that's how you can set yourself on a path such that you will not, or you reduce your chances of having your role taken over by AI systems in the future, because that's when you come in with creative input. That's when you come in with your life experience, which AI systems, whether it's today or the next 5 to 10 years, will still not be able to replicate. So that's the basic answer that I will give for this question.
Thanks. So Adrian, over to you. So is it worth going to university if AI might replace a lot of jobs? What do you think?
I'm so scared to answer this question. Well, firstly, I did go to university, so the disclaimer there. But I think all in all, unfortunately, we do have to understand and remember that your hiring manager likely went to university. They will forever use that as an anchor to gauge and assess the people that they are trying to bring in. So that would be quite, that's something that you may want to think about, because ultimately, and I've seen this happen many, many times. I remember decades ago when I was in recruitment, and this was during the era when fair employment wasn't yet a thing. There was a company out there that actually listed in their job description, we only want to hire graduate from NUS, NTU, basically all the local government uni, which was very blatant. And again, back then, there's no fair employment. Nobody can do anything about it. And someone actually interviewed the owner who posted the ad. And he said, oh, because I come from NTU or NUS, that's why I feel that, people from the same school has a certain standard that I much prefer. Nowadays, you can't do that. Doesn't mean they doesn't feel that way, just because they cannot put it out there. So I feel if unless you are so lucky, you can find someone who you can find your future hiring manager that has become a hiring manager based on unconventional path. I wouldn't say rule it all out lah. Now, granted, I understand it's expensive and all that, but still you have to identify who ultimately is the decision maker, and that is something that unfortunately is part of the rule of the game that you have to play by.
Thanks for that, Adrian and Josh. So we go back.
Dylan,
Yes.
if I may, just to
Yeah.
chime in on that question, is it worth going to university? Maybe let's broaden the question. Is it worth going for tertiary education at all? Whether you're talking about polytechnic, you're talking about technical education, you're talking about university. My answer is yes, go for it. There are distinct advantages or distinct benefits from being able to go for that further education, even if the knowledge may not be as relevant in, let's say, a few years' time. And what are some of these benefits? Being able to interact professionally with other people, to learn how to hold yourself in a professional setting, to have your mind space and your comfort levels stretched by different sources of information and education. University, at least in Singapore, is a good opportunity, or even polytechnics as well, to get opportunities to get exposed, right, to the professional space, whether it's internships, it's meeting people at networking sessions. So that is a good pathway for you to be able to understand all these different aspects of going into the working world beyond just the books or beyond just the resources that you learn. Sure, you are able to probably Google or even ChatGPT, and I hope you check out answers first, most of the things that you need for university, at least at the academic level. But at a social level, at a broader education life level, I think there is much more things that further education can provide that often we gloss over. We just look at the academic transcript or the certification, but the life skills that you learn in this school of further education is really something that will set you on a good path down when you are looking at your career next time.
Thanks for that, Josh. Yes, point well taken as well. It's just not the academic aspects of it, there's the other life skills aspects. So now let's take a look at external pressure, right? So we have talked about university, talent, skills, what you need to equip yourself. Now, every individuals in many cultures face social pressure or judgment when pursuing unconventional paths, right? So these days, I mean, Adrian, you talked about like kind of, you look at what you're interested in and go for it, right? So when you go for it, you might face external criticism. You might have your parents coming to you and say, hang on, I don't think you should pursue this path. So how can young people navigate these pressures and stay true to their goals in the face of societal criticism or even within the family, right? What do you think, Adrian?
Navigating parental pressure is really challenging, bearing in mind you are living in their house, not the other way around. When I started my recruitment business 2004, I faced a similar thing. Parents of my mom generation would be, oh, can't you just find a job, iron rice bowl, work in government, that kind of stuff. But there was something in me that I felt I wanted to do something different, and I pushed for it. Even until it took a long time before she could see the success that I had, because success did not come overnight. And even so, in doing your own business, there's always up and down, right? Whenever things are not doing well, again, the same argument will come back. Why don't you just go, find a job and all that? It can be quite frustrating for one who is trying to pursue something on an alternate path. One thing I did realize over time, and this is not something unique to me as well, I think we only have one life, right? And I feel if there's only one rule that you have lived by, and that rule would be disappoint as many people as you can around you so that you don't have to disappoint yourself. And I feel that is something every one of us has to. I'm not saying burn all bridges, destroy the relationship you have between yourself and your parents and your friends. But ultimately, we do have only one life. And also to bear in mind that whatever you want to do now may not necessarily be the last thing that you're going to do. In a way, I thought my recruitment business would be for life, but no, I left that like 10 years ago. Then of course I faced identity crisis, but that's another story for another webinar. But having said that, it is just a phase in your life that you just want to go through, gain the experience, enjoy the journey, and see what comes out from it. And ideally, you want to get support. But if you don't get the support, I still feel that you may want to persevere, unless you're saying, "Oh, I want to go all out. Papa, Mama, can you sell the house to finance, this new business that I have?" Otherwise, I feel young people, especially when you have youth energy by your side, you should really try to give it a go. Because people like my age, if you try to ask me to do a startup right now, I cannot. I need to sleep at 9:30 p.m. How to do startup? But that is something that young people has by virtue of them being young. So if you miss this chance, it may never come back to you again.
Thanks so much, Adrian. So, George, your experience from pivoting, right? You were trained as a lawyer, but you also had a career change in some regard. So, tell us your experience. Thanks.
I think it has been a tough journey for me. My parents were very proud that I went through law school and then I got called to the bar. And I can tell that from anecdotes that they share with their friends. But then when I pushed on separately on my own, I think I was grateful to them that even though they are family, I live in a family where providing verbal support is not the norm. It's more of just, if anything, everything is just kept quiet and is through actions. But I think there was quiet support for me to find my way. I think the one where I had to face more judgment on wasn't really so much from my parents, but it was about expectations from people around me. You could say friends, professors, colleagues. They would look at you trying to do they would look at me trying to do various other things and think, you could have been so much better if you just put your energies in one space. Why are you devoting time to so many other things? Let me give you an example. I mentioned that I'm a street dancer. I had to go for training. I would go for training about 3 or 4 times a week. Sometimes I do have to cut that down, but I try and maintain a weekly schedule. Of course, there would be bosses or colleagues that had the mindset that, well, if you put that aside, you would be so much better at your job. But eventually what happened was that I managed to come to terms with all of this. How did I do that? I realized that what I wanted to do in my career, which is as a technology lawyer, being able to shape technology regulations such that technology benefits people. But benefits people how? I want to change them in a way that imbibes the values that I hold dear to: respect, humility, discipline, and to imbibe them. Where did it come in the first place? It came from my side hustle, right? Which is street dancing. And that's how everything tied together for me. So it was tough. And therefore, one thing I would say that helps you, this question, right? When you look at it, it means that you've already somehow found a North Star, right? A goal that you want to work towards. I think it's good to have some level of resilience, right? So you need to be mindful of yourself and be willing to push yourself even when the going gets tough. Sometimes resilience and discipline may mean doing things that seem strange to others, like going out of your way to do strange things to pursue your passion, but may be necessary to achieve your goals. And I think that's something that Adrian also alluded to. For me, sometimes I didn't have time to go to my studio or go to somewhere to train, somewhere proper to train. Well, within the law firm, my bosses don't know this, but when I had to work till 1 a.m., 2 a.m., or 3 a.m. last time, what I do is I bring my dance gear to the intern's office. There was a meeting room that was the intern's room. I would go in there, change, lock the door, and then I would practice there for about an hour or two. And then I come back and go back to my workstation and work again. It was strange. I think outside in, when people look in, they'll say this is funny, right? But for me, I had to do what I had to do to keep my passion going, to keep true to what really meant the most to me. So that's the answer that I give to this question.
Thanks so much for both of you. That's a human spirit, like the resilience and the never giving up aspect of it. Disregard external pressure. So let me just go on to the next question. 1 second. Here we go. How can workplaces be fairer and more supportive, especially for people who think or work differently, like those who are neurodivergent? I just want to give some context to this question. We had someone working for us intern, interning with us, and he has a disability, but it wasn't obvious. It wasn't obvious until we start working with him. So for him, he is not considered as a person with disability at all. Neither is he really fully normal. He is somehow in the gray area. So how do you think workplace can be fairer for some people who, well and good, they not quite your broad average person, and with some disability and not extreme disability that is so visible? What are your take on this, Adrian?
I actually did some training on PWD hiring before at Enabling Village. I think concept-wise, it is quite similar. You would need to provide large amount of education within the workplace, because ultimately, even if the owner, the C-level think it is okay, operationally, it is still the middle management and the colleagues that the individual has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So helping them to understand, of course, there are people that are neurodivergent, how they function, how they work differently. And even if you look away from that, just between the three of us, we all have different personality. The way we approach work will be very different. If we just look at very common examples, there are people who are introverted, there are people who are extroverted. That alone would be very different when you try to put them in a networking setting. So similarly, when it comes to people who are who has disability or who are neurodivergent, they would also react and behave in a very different fashion. Doesn't mean they are wrong. It may not be something that one is accustomed to, but there is no right or wrong in this world. And I feel there just has to be a lot of education and reminder, especially a lot of over communication on, firstly, to drive across the benefit of why we need to do this to begin with. I think that has to be seeded very intensely into the entire workplace, to let them know that we are not doing this for the sake of doing this. We are not doing this so that we can appear on Channel 5 News. We want to do this because it will not just help make a difference, but actually it is commercially prudent to be doing this. We are able to tap into an alternate talent pool that other companies has not been able to. I remember when I was still doing the training at Enabling Village, there were a case study about how UOB would tap on people with autism to manage their operations center. And then you also have Uniqlo tapping on people with similar disability to help with their inventory, their warehousing, etc. And it also helped to broaden up people's understanding of what are their preconceived notion of what different people may have when it comes to the way they function. So it will help them to understand, hey, actually, they are not that different from us. So trying to find a commonality is also very important. And that is how we always see happen, right? When it comes to company team bonding and all that. Team bonding is always about trying to find a commonality across all of us. And I believe whether you are you have some disability or you're neurodivergent, there are definitely some commonality that would tie us together. But ultimately, companies have to play a very active role in trying to push that across. Individuals will never volunteer to do something on their own. So companies as well as the business owners has a big shoe to fill to drive this forward.
Thanks for that. So Josh, what's your understanding of this, and what do you think? Thanks for that.
I think that for me, I don't have a huge amount. I can't say I have a huge amount of experience in running and shaping workplaces. But let me try and answer this from first principles. I think this question, yes, there is the last part that talks about neurodivergent individuals, but I think the key thing is about looking at for those who think or work differently. And as Adrian's answer covered just now, even just within this small group that we have, the three of us, we all would have different takes, different perspectives on different issues. In other words, our workspaces are not just simply places where everyone thinks the same, where it's a complete echo chamber. There are different personalities, different perspectives that we always have to navigate. How do we be more fairer and more supportive? I think it starts by sometimes workplaces have a great emphasis of wanting to be as efficient as possible, to find the straightest route to the answer. But in order to be able to fit more people into the picture such that we all go together, maybe it's not always about putting efficiency first. It's looking about effectiveness in the long run, having a more holistic perspective that brings in the views of other people, let's say from different disciplines also, right, to come into the answer such that it is something that can address multiple perspectives. It is a holistic answer. And efficiency, it will have a value, but it has value at various points in time. Sure, if you're organizing a business event for tomorrow, you need to be as efficient as possible to get things out of the way so that you can have things all together by tomorrow. But if you're looking at planning, let's say the overall direction for your team or for your office or for your company for the next 1, 2, maybe even 3 or 5 years, then I think all the more important it is for us to take in as many different perspectives as possible from everyone around us, and not just from people that echo the views that we already have as managers or leaders. So that's something that I'm reasoning out just based on first principles.
Thanks very much for that. That's very interesting answers. So we'll go to the final question now. How should I define success when everyone has an opinion about what I should be doing? I think let's go back to also kind of societal pressure on what everyone should reach by a certain age, right? By 20, I should have graduated, get a degree. By 30, I should have my house or car, etc. So, Adrian, what do you think? Thanks for that.
It's very hard to put it in practice, but other people's opinion doesn't really carry much weight to what you think and how you want to, unless they're paying your bills. Otherwise, they don't know they don't know anything about your life. So why should you allow people who has limited view into what you do on a day-to-day basis to judge you and to set parameter on what you should attain? And also vice versa. I know it's a bit hard because in today's world, we see the Instagram version of everybody else. But unfortunately, we see the behind the scenes version of ourselves. And we tend to compare them. We compare our behind the scene raw footage with everyone's Instagram reel. It just doesn't make sense. If you think about it. You want to compare, you compare highlights with highlights at the very least. So that may feel very jarring when you look at the disparity. But end of the day, your success is only for you to enjoy, not anyone else. If all you're chasing, of course, is vanity metrics for ego, for pride and all that, not judging here, but that might make your life very painful. But ultimately, if it's more on self-fulfillment, trying to make yourself lead a purposeful life, to pay it forward, or just to be happy, then it is all about what you think of what your success should be. And with that, I feel you really should define success on your own terms, which I reckon will be very hard when I'm at 20 plus. I have no idea what success means. But you just have to have faith in yourself. I always tell people, imagine if you're a racehorse at Turf Club. I know no more Turf Club now, but please bear with me for a while. If you have to bet on a horse, you would bet on yourself, right? It doesn't make sense for you to bet on other people's horse. So you want to bet on yourself and just make sure that you are able to do the right thing to move things forward. There's a very interesting book by a guy called Bill Welch. He's a football coach of the 49ers, if I'm not, Philadelphia 49ers. And the title of the book says it all. The score will take care of itself. Just make sure you're doing the right thing. None of us would know what will happen next year, 5 years down the road, or even tomorrow. As long as you're doing the right thing, the score will take care of itself. Success will come by itself.
Thanks for that, Adrian. Josh, thanks for that.
I mean, I like that. I really like that analogy about the coach from the 49ers. It echoes a quote that I have in mind from Steve Jobs, right? When he mentioned at one of the commencement ceremonies, he said, at Apple, and this is Apple under his charge, we don't focus on the profits. We focus on making products that everyone loves to use, and then the profits will take care of it itself. So I think that really just echoes the analogy or the quote that Adrian just shared. I think My answer to this question is really a summary of everything that we've discussed so far, right? Find the courage to define success as the achievement of values, not generic metrics that may not be applicable to you. At the same time, although, some people around you that form opinions, sometimes they do so because they care. So you don't need to take their opinions as gospel, but you can choose to see their opinions as potential opportunities to spot blind spot, or maybe as a dipstick into the direction that you are going. In other words, don't be overly swayed by them, but there's no need to dismiss them completely out of hand as well. For example, just to put an example, I don't think it's relevant to anyone that's listening here, but if your view of success is to make as many illegal gains as possible, then I think it would not be wise to, just avoid taking heed of society's opinions on that matter. Now, to recap everything, I just want to make just 2 quick points. All this will sound very abstract, so maybe a pithy way to put it across is, we have the 5 C's in our generation, right? Adrian, you probably know about the 5 C's. So maybe instead of the 5 C's, which are already outdated, maybe consider the 5 M's: meaning, memories, maturity, milestones, and making value. So I'll leave everyone with a poem by this favorite poet of mine called Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, "What is success? To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or redeemed social condition. So know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. That is to have succeeded." So that's how I'll close my answer to this question.
Thanks for that. Beautiful. Okay, we're out of time, so I just want to very quickly close off. So if there's one thing that a young person should do now after hearing all of this about his or her future and take action, what is that one action that you would say? Adrian? Or you want some more time? I can go to Josh, or Josh, what do you think? Thanks for that.
I'd be happy to start first. The first thing that comes to mind is, go somewhere where you can think, where you can reflect. Find yourself a good environment where you can be in a reflective mood, and be brutally honest with yourself.
Thanks for that.
If at the end of that thinking session, the reflection session, you are able to find what is causing your ennui, which is that directionless, rudderless feeling that you might have, then I think that is one concrete thing where you can realize that, okay, something is wrong here, something is not aligned. What is the action that I can take to get myself out of that funk? Therefore, my call to action is be brutally honest with yourself. Have a detached, objective view of where your life is going. And then, honestly, I think for most of us here, we, at some deep level, at some base level, already know what the answer is. So go find that answer.
Nice one. Adrian, what about you? Thanks for that.
Over and above what Josh has rightly mentioned, I would like to just share that please do not see your life as a single player game. You can actually get support and help from many people. And I think we can draw reference from the Singapore government, right? They are so good at forming committees after committees. Form your own committees to help you seek out mentors, reach out to strangers online who you think may be able to give you the right advice. I think those will be very purposeful and a lot more fruitful. And for those of you who may think that, oh yeah, why would people want to, reply to me? They don't know me, and just, a small fry and all that. I can assure you, people will actually be willing to help, because some of them may have been in your shoe 20, 30 years ago. When they are helping you psychologically, they are helping the younger version of themselves. So just give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? And if you are able to get those support, those help, you are able to 10x your ability to secure whatever success, or it could even be just a simple job that you're trying to go after. It will be so much easier. So try to crowdsource those support mechanisms rather than trying to brute force your way through this single player game.
Thanks for that. Brilliant. Yeah, one has an internal thinking mentality, and one is the external support. That so for every individual, you should have both take a holistic view on this. So thanks very much, both of you. I really, really appreciate the time. As we mentioned, we will record this and we will send it to all our participants who have missed this. Stay tuned, and we will be in touch again. Thanks, Adrian and Josh. And that's the end of our webinar. Thank you.